Blood was pooling on the ER floor faster than anyone could stop it. The rookie nurse didn't know the man yet, didn't know he was a Navy SEAL, didn't know he carried classified secrets, and definitely didn't know that in less than 10 minutes, the FBI would ask her a single question that could get her killed. The floor tiles were slick with blood. That was the first thing Emily Carter noticed, not the screaming monitors, not the frantic shouts, not even the copper-heavy smell of trauma, just how easy it would be to slip and fall in someone else's life, spilling across white hospital tile. For a 23-year-old nurse barely 4 months out of school, this was not supposed to be how a Tuesday night went. St. Mark's Medical Center sat just outside Charleston, South Carolina, close enough to the naval base that military injuries weren't unheard of. But this was different. Incoming trauma, the charge nurse barked as the ER doors exploded open. Multiple gunshot wounds, male, early 30s, no ID, BP's tanking. Emily dropped her coffee before it hit the floor. The gurney burst through the doors, pushed by 2 soaked paramedics. Rain streaked off their jackets, pooling beneath the wheels. "What happened?" Dr. Alan Mercer demanded, already snapping on gloves. "Found him near the docks," one medic shouted. "No wallet, no phone, 3 GSWs, tight grouping, not random." Emily moved on instinct. Trauma Bay 3, fluids, Oneg blood, her hands shook, but they didn't stop. When they transferred the man to the bed, Emily's fingers brushed his arm. Solid, dense, muscle packed tight like coiled steel. Not a drifter, not a gang kid. Dr. Mercer cut away the man's jacket, and the room went quiet. 3 entry wounds. Clean, precise. "That's professional work," Mercer muttered. Double tap to the chest, 1 to the abdomen. Emily leaned closer as she suctioned blood from the wounds and froze. On the man's shoulder, half hidden beneath blood and rainwater, was a tattoo. A trident, wrapped with an eagle, anchored by a pistol. "Oh my God," whispered someone behind her. Emily swallowed, even she knew that symbol. "That's Navy," she said quietly. "Doesn't matter who he is," Mercer snapped. "He's bleeding out." The monitor screamed. BP dropping. Heart rate spiking. Emily locked in. Scalpel suction, clamp. Minutes blurred together into chaos. Blood, smoke from cauterization, the metallic clink of something hitting a steel tray. 1, Mercer said, dropping a mangled bullet. Clink. 2. Clink. The third took longer, the patient convulsed, the monitor shrieked. "Stay with us," Emily whispered, leaning close. "Don't you dare die on me." Mercer pulled hard, and the final bullet came free. Clang! Emily glanced at the tray. 3 bullets. None of them looked standard. Longer, heavier, silver-tipped. Mercer stripped off his gloves. "Stabilize him. I'll notify admin. If he's military, they'll want to know." The room cleared. Emily stayed. She cleaned blood from his chest, from his hands covered in scars, knuckles broken and reset more than once. On the inside of his wrist were numbers written in thick black marker. 71 K9C. They didn't wash off. Suddenly, his hand shot up. Emily gasped as fingers clamped around her wrist, strong, desperate. Ice blue eyes snapped open. "Easy," she said. "You're safe. You're in the hospital." He tried to sit up and failed, coughing wet and sharp. "They're coming," he rasped. "Who?" Emily whispered. "Not police." His grip tightened. "Take it." "Take what?" His shaking hand moved toward his waistband. Hidden inside the fabric was a small black object, no bigger than a thumb drive. "Hide it," he whispered. "Don't trust." His eyes rolled back. The grip went slack. Emily stood frozen, heart pounding. Every rule said to tag it as patient property. Every instinct screamed that if she did, someone would die. She slipped the device into her scrub pocket. The doors opened behind her. Two men in dark suits stepped into the trauma bay. Dry, calm, predatory. The taller one flipped open a badge. FBI, he said smoothly. Nurse, did the patient say anything to you? Emily felt the weight in her pocket burn like a brand. And she realized saving the seal wasn't the dangerous part. Lying was. In part 2, the FBI seals the floor, the bullets vanish into evidence bags, and Emily realizes they aren't protecting the patient. They're hunting something he hid. Emily Carter didn't move. She stood frozen between the hospital bed and the two men in suits, her pulse pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. The taller agent's badge caught the fluorescent light, gold, polished, official. FBI. Step away from the patient, the man said calmly. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Emily swallowed. This is a restricted trauma bay. He's post-op and unstable. You can't just. We can, the agent interrupted, snapping the badge shut. Agent Daniel Cross. This is Agent Ryan Cole. We're assuming jurisdiction. Jurisdiction. Emily hated that word already. Dr. Mercer stormed back in, his jaw tight. What the hell is going on? National security, Cross replied smoothly. This man is a fugitive. Emily looked back at the unconscious patient. Fugitive. He lay pale and broken beneath clean white sheets, tubes snaking from his arms, chest rising shallowly with each breath. Whatever he was, he didn't look like a threat. He needs rest, Emily said, not interrogation. Cross stepped closer, too close. You don't understand what he's capable of, Nurse Carter. Emily forced herself not to step back. I understand vitals, she said, and he's barely holding onto them. For a moment, Cross studied her face, eyes cold, unblinking, like he was measuring her for cracks. Then he turned. Secure the room. Agent Cole moved fast. He shut the curtains, checked under the bed, then went straight for the metal tray. Emily's stomach dropped. The bullets. Those are hospital property, she said quickly. They need to be logged through pathology. Cross picked one up between gloved fingers, examining it without touching the blood. These rounds are classified. Classified bullets. Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine. Cole slid the 3 bullets into an evidence bag and sealed it. No one leaves this floor, Cross said. Phones off, no outside communication. Dr. Mercer bristled. You don't have the authority. I do, Cross cut in, and I suggest you cooperate. Mercer glared, but he backed down. Emily hated him a little for it. The agents took positions, one near the door, one at the nurse's station. They weren't guarding the patient. They were guarding her. Emily walked out to the station on shaking legs and sat at a computer she couldn't focus on. Her reflection stared back at her from the black screen, wide eyes, pale face, scrub pocket bulging just slightly. The device felt heavier by the second. From the reflection, she watched Cole move through the trauma bay. Checking the trash. The supply cart. The pile of cut clothing. Her heart hammered. They're searching. Cross leaned against the counter beside her. Routine questions, he said casually. Did the patient regain consciousness? Emily's mouth was dry. No, she lied. Cross tilted his head, not even briefly. No. He smiled faintly. That's interesting. Her stomach twisted. Paramedics said he was talking in the ambulance. He crashed when he arrived, Emily said. BP dropped. We intubated immediately. Cross held her gaze. Seconds stretched. Finally, he nodded. If he wakes up, you notify me immediately. You don't speak to him. Is that clear? Yes. Good. He walked away. Emily exhaled shakily. She needed to move the device. No. Her eyes scanned the hallway. Locker room, too obvious. Trash, no chance. Bathroom. She stood, grabbed a clipboard, and walked casually toward the staff restroom. She could feel Cross watching her. Inside, she locked the door and leaned against the sink, breathing hard. "What are you doing?" she whispered to herself. Her hands shook as she pulled the device out. Matte black. A small etched symbol glinted on the surface. A lion's head, goat horns, a snake tail. A chimera. She looked up as a pounding hit the door. "Nurse Carter," Cross called, "open up." Panic slammed through her. She looked around, too fast, too desperate. Ceiling tile. One corner sat slightly crooked. Emily climbed onto the toilet, pushed the tile up, and shoved the device as far back as she could reach. Her fingers scraped metal supports. She dropped back down, flushed the toilet, smoothed her scrubs. Unlocked the door. Cross stood there, filling the doorway. He stepped inside without asking. Checked the trash. Lifted the toilet tank lid. Looked at the ceiling. Emily held her breath. Then he turned back to her. "One more question," he said softly. Her heart stopped. "Did you find anything on the patient that wasn't a weapon?" The hallway felt too small, too quiet. "I didn't," Emily said, "just his clothes." Cross stepped closer. "Think carefully. Lying to a federal agent is a felony." Emily stared straight ahead. "If there was anything else," she said, "maybe it fell out where you found him." Cross watched her for a long moment. Then, "Agent Cross," a voice boomed. Dr. Mercer stormed down the hallway, hospital security behind him. "You will not harass my staff." Cross straightened, the charm snapping back into place. "Of course, Doctor, misunderstanding." Emily slipped past them, knees weak. Behind her, Cross's voice dropped. "For now." She reached the nurse's station and collapsed into the chair. The monitor in trauma bay 3 beeped faster. She jumped up. Inside, the SEAL's eyes were open again. Locked on her. "They're not FBI," he whispered. Emily leaned in. "Then who are they?" "People who clean up secrets," he rasped, "and they don't leave witnesses." The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the ER plunged into emergency red. And somewhere down the hall, a gunshot cracked. In part 3, the power goes out, the first body hits the floor, and Emily is forced to choose between running or fighting back alongside a dying SEAL. The gunshot echoed through the ER like a thunderclap. Emily froze mid-step, her hand still hovering over the IV pump. For half a second, no one moved, then chaos detonated all at once. Shouting, footsteps, a scream cut off too fast. The emergency lights bathed the trauma bay in red, turning the blood on the sheets almost black. The man on the bed, LT, Marcus Hale, she realized now, gripped the mattress with white-knuckled intensity. "They've started," he whispered. "What started?" Emily demanded. "The cleanup." Another shot cracked, closer this time. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. "Security's here, doctors are here, they can't just." "Yes, they can," Hale rasped, "and they will." The curtain ripped open. Agent Cole stood there, gun drawn, not a sidearm now, but a compact suppressed weapon that didn't belong in any hospital. Behind him, something lay on the floor. Emily recognized the shoes. Hospital security. Blood crept across the linoleum toward the door. Cole's eyes flicked to Hale. "You woke up sooner than expected," he said. Emily stepped between them without thinking. "He's critical," she said. "You can't." Cole shoved her aside with one hand. Hale moved. Despite the tubes, despite the blood loss, he rolled just enough, fast, brutal, and yanked Emily down with him as a shot thudded into the wall where her head had been. "Move," Hale growled. Emily scrambled to her feet, grabbed the wheelchair by instinct. Cole fired again. The shot shattered a monitor, sparks flying. Emily slammed the brakes off the bed and hauled Hale upright. He screamed, couldn't stop it, but he bit it down into a grunt. "Back corridor," he said. "Supply passage." Emily pushed. They burst through the rear door just as another gunshot punched into the frame behind them. The corridor beyond was narrow and dim, shelves stacked with boxes of gauze and saline. It smelled like bleach and dust. Emily's arms burned as she pushed the chair. Behind them, voices shouted, "Target mobile. Seal the exits." Hale coughed, blood flecking his lips. "They'll jam comms, no calls, no signals." Emily checked her phone. "No service." "Oh my God." "Focus," Hale said. "We get vertical." "Vertical." "Stairs, roof." They rounded a corner and skidded to a stop. A man stood there, holding a mop bucket. Grey hair, bent shoulders. Frank Lewis, the night janitor. In his other hand, a Glock. Emily screamed. "Relax," Frank said calmly. "You're loud enough to get us all killed." He glanced past them down the hall, listening. "They're sweeping floor by floor," he said. "Two front, one back, suits guys on the station." "You knew," Emily breathed. Frank shrugged. "I clean bathrooms, people talk." Hale stuttered him. "You military." "Vietnam," Frank said. "Long time ago." Hale nodded once. "Good enough." Frank handed him the gun. Emily stared. "You can't be serious." "I can," Frank said, "and I am." Boots thundered nearby. "Stairwell's hot," Frank said, "but it's our only shot." They moved. The stairwell door burst open just as a man in black tactical gear appeared above them, Agent Cole. He raised his weapon. Hale fired first. The shot went wide, but it bought time. Frank hurled two buckets together. A choking white cloud erupted. Cole screamed as the gas swallowed him. Emily gagged, pulling her shirt over her mouth. "Go," Hale shouted. They pushed into the stairwell, climbing fast. Hale stumbled, blood soaked fresh through his bandages. "Lean on me," Frank said, throwing Hale's arm over his shoulder. They climbed. 1 floor. 2. Sirens wailed somewhere outside, but they weren't police. "They're jamming," Hale gasped. "This is off books." They reached the top landing. The roof door flew open. A figure stood framed by rain and darkness. Agent Cross. Gun leveled. "End of the line," he said calmly. "Give me the drive." Emily froze. Hale sagged against the wall, barely conscious. Frank raised his hands slowly. "I have it," Emily said. Cross smiled. "Smart girl." She reached into her pocket and dropped. Cross fired. The bullet tore through air where her head had been. Hale fired from the hip. Cross screamed as the shot took his leg. Before he could recover, a pipe wrench slammed into his skull. Cross crumpled. Emily looked up. The intake nurse, Josh Miller, stood there shaking, holding the wrench. "I heard shooting," he said weakly. "I panicked." "You saved our lives," Frank said. Hale coughed. "Signal boot." Emily twisted the heel. A red light blinked. "Signal out," Hale whispered. "Now we wait." A radio crackled on Cross's belt. "Cleanup team inbound, 2 minutes, no survivors." Emily's blood ran cold. "Cleanup team," she said. Hale looked at her. "Not FBI," he said. "Not military." "What then?" "Exterminators." The wind howled as rain lashed the roof. Emily straightened. No, she said, we're not waiting. She looked at the oxygen pipes running along the roof. An idea ignited. We fight, she said. Hale smiled weakly. That's my nurse. In part 4, a black helicopter rises out of the storm, the roof turns into a war zone, and Emily realizes she's no longer just saving a life, she's defending the truth. The rain hit the rooftop like thrown gravel. Emily crawled low across the concrete, dragging the oxygen wrench with her as wind tore at her scrubs. The city below was a smear of yellow lights and darkness, the harbor invisible beyond sheets of rain. Behind her, Marcus Hale slumped against the stairwell housing, chest heaving, blood soaking through the fresh bandages. Frank Lewis knelt beside him, one arm locked around the SEAL's back to keep him upright. Josh stood frozen, pipe wrench still clutched in his hands, like he couldn't quite believe he was holding it. The radio, on Cross's belt, crackled again. Cleanup team on approach, 30 seconds. Emily's stomach dropped. Which pipe? Hale rasped. The green one, Emily shouted back. Red wheel, main oxygen relief. Hale nodded weakly. When it opens, don't breathe. The sound came first. A low mechanical growl, deep enough to rattle teeth. Josh looked up. That's not a medevac. No, Frank said grimly, that's a hunter. A matte black helicopter rose over the edge of the building, lights off, rain sliding across its skin. It hovered with unnatural steadiness, rotors slicing the storm into spirals. A minigun rotated into view. Down, Hale roared. The gun screamed. Concrete exploded, chunks of parapet shredded into dust. Emily felt the impact in her bones as rounds chewed the roof where she'd been seconds before. She rolled behind a massive HVAC unit as Frank dragged Hale with a grunt of pain. Josh dove, barely missing a burst that stitched the ground where he'd stood. They're strafing, Emily yelled. They're not landing. They don't want bodies, Hale said between gasps. They want nothing left. The helicopter banked for another pass, nose dipping. Emily sprinted. Every step felt like running through glue. She skidded to the pipe cluster, wrapped her fingers around the red wheel, and cranked. Nothing. Her hands slipped, slick with rain. Come on, she hissed. The minigun spun up again. Frank hurled a road flare across the roof. It burst into angry red light, hissing and spitting sparks. The helicopter swung toward it. Now, Hale shouted. Emily wrenched the valve. Metal screamed. The pipe ruptured with a deafening shriek as pressurized oxygen blasted skyward in a roaring white plume. The helicopter flew straight into it. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the engine howled. A violent backfire boomed as flames spat from the exhaust. The rotor RPM spiked, then collapsed. The chopper lurched sideways, tail rotor clipping the parapet with a crunch of tearing metal. It slammed onto the helipad, skidding, rotors disintegrating into shrapnel that screamed across the roof. Silence followed, broken only by rain and the hiss of oxygen. Did we? Josh started. Stay down, Hale rasped. The side door of the wrecked helicopter kicked open. A man in black tactical gear crawled out, bleeding, rifle in hand. He lifted the weapon. Emily froze. A red dot bloomed on the man's chest. Then another. Then a dozen. A voice boomed from above the storm. United States Navy, drop the weapon. Floodlights ignited the roof in blinding white. 2 Seahawk helicopters descended like thunder, ropes unfurling as real SEALs fast-roped down with terrifying precision. The man with the rifle hesitated. A single shot cracked. He collapsed. Hands where we can see them, a SEAL shouted. Emily raised hers, shaking. Frank did the same. Josh dropped the wrench with a clatter. Hale didn't move. He's down, Emily screamed. He's one of yours, Lieutenant Marcus Hale. The lead operator rushed over, eyes flicking to the tattoo on Hale's shoulder. "Medic," he barked, "now." As corpsemen swarmed, Hale's eyes fluttered open. He found Emily's face. "Good call," he whispered. "Oxygen, clever." She laughed, half hysterical, half sobbing. "I'm a nurse. We improvise." They loaded Hale onto a stretcher, moving with speed and care that told Emily this wasn't their first miracle. As the helicopters lifted, rain whipping sideways, Emily caught a glimpse of the city again, still standing. Still alive. The briefing room was windowless and cold. Emily sat wrapped in a wool blanket beside Frank and Josh. Across the table sat a woman in a dark suit, NCIS agent Laura Finch, and a silver-haired man in dress whites who radiated quiet authority. "Lieutenant Hale is in surgery," the Admiral said. "He's critical, he'll live." Emily's breath came out in a rush. "We have one problem," Agent Finch added. "Without evidence, Chimera Solutions claims Hale went rogue." The Admiral folded his hands. "We need what he protected." Emily hesitated. She reached into her pocket and placed the small black drive on the table, but kept her hand on it. "How do I know you're not them?" she asked. "Everyone had badges." The Admiral's eyes softened. He slid a heavy coin across the table. "A trident." "I sent him," he said quietly, "and you brought him home." Emily lifted her hand. Finch plugged in the drive. The screen filled with footage, faces, money, schematics. "Treason." Silence fell like a verdict. 6 months later, the rain had stopped. Emily sat at a cafe near the harbor, iced coffee sweating onto the table. A man with a cane approached, smiling. "Seat taken?" Marcus Hale asked. She stood, laughing through tears. "I heard you don't die easy," she said. He shrugged, "Had a good nurse." They sat, watching waves roll in. The nightmare was over. But the story was. In Part 5, the cover-up begins, enemies strike back quietly, and Emily learns the most dangerous threats don't wear uniforms, they wear smiles. 6 months later, the danger didn't arrive with gunfire. It arrived with silence. Emily Carter learned that the hard way on a calm Wednesday morning when her phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m. No caller ID, no message, just a single vibration that stopped as soon as she picked it up. She stared at the dark screen, unease settling in her chest. Since the night on the roof, life had tried to return to normal, tried being the key word. St. Mark's Medical Center had quietly restructured. Dr. Mercer retired early. Hospital security was replaced by a private firm. The incident was officially labeled a gas explosion caused by a disgruntled patient. And Emily. She'd been offered a transfer, politely, firmly, immediately. Charleston was no longer a good fit. Now she lived 3 hours north, working days instead of nights, keeping her head down, pretending she wasn't on a list somewhere. She poured coffee, trying to shake the feeling crawling up her spine. That's when she noticed the envelope. Plain white, no stamp. Sitting on her kitchen table. Her heart thudded. She hadn't seen anyone come in. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Her, taken yesterday. Outside the hospital. A handwritten note sat beneath it. Still saving lives. Emily's breath caught. She grabbed her phone and dialed the only number she still had memorized. It rang once. "Emily," Marcus Hale said, "you just got something, didn't you?" Her knees went weak. "How did you?" "They're moving again," he said. "Chimera's bleeding money, people are talking, and when that happens, witnesses disappear." "I thought it was over." "So did they," Marcus said, "until you lived." 2 days later, Emily sat in the back booth of a quiet diner off Highway 17. Marcus sat across from her, cane leaned against the table, eyes scanning reflections in the window instead of the room itself. "You should disappear," he said calmly. "New name, new city." Emily shook her head. "That's what they want." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "You're braver than most soldiers I've served with," he said. "That's not a compliment, it's a warning." Before she could respond, a man slid into the booth beside her. Frank Lewis. Older, grayer, still solid. "I figured you two would meet without me," Frank said dryly. "Same mistake every time." Emily blinked. "Frank, how did you?" "People forget janitors," Frank said. "They shouldn't." Marcus exhaled slowly. "They're watching you." Frank nodded. "Both of you, subtle, rental cars, burners, the quiet kind." Emily's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "So what do we do?" Frank smiled faintly. "We stop running." The trap was simple. Too simple. Emily returned to Charleston under her own name. She posted photos, tagged locations, let herself be seen. Marcus hated it. "You're bait," he said flatly. "Yes," Emily replied, "and you're the hook." They chose a charity gala, politicians, defense contractors, donors, Chimera's favorite hunting ground. Frank worked security. Emily wore a borrowed dress and carried a purse with nothing inside except a recorder and one last insurance policy, the drive's backup. The ballroom glittered with fake smiles. Emily felt them before she saw them. Two men near the bar. One woman pretending to text. All watching her. She slipped away toward the terrace. A hand grabbed her arm. "Firm, professional. You need to come with us," the man said quietly. She smiled. "About time." The terrace doors slammed shut behind them. The woman stepped forward. "You should have disappeared," she said. "So should you," Emily replied. A red dot danced across the man's chest. Then another. "Drop them," Marcus's voice echoed from the shadows. SEALs emerged, not in uniform but unmistakable. Frank stepped in last, gun steady. The woman's face drained of color. "This was a mistake," she hissed. "No," Marcus said, "this was accountability." Sirens wailed below. Emily exhaled, knees shaking. As agents cuffed the Chimera operatives, Marcus leaned close. "You didn't just survive," he said, "you ended it." Emily looked out over the harbor lights. "No," she said softly, "I made sure it can't start again." But as the last suspect was led away, Emily's phone buzzed once more. A new message. "You picked the wrong war." She showed Marcus. He didn't smile. "They always say that," he replied, "right before they lose." In Part 6, the conspiracy reaches higher than anyone imagined. Emily faces betrayal from inside the system, and one final secret threatens to undo everything they've fought for. Emily didn't sleep that night. Every sound in her apartment felt amplified, the hum of the fridge, the distant traffic, the creak of the floorboards when she shifted on the couch. Her phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark, like it was watching her. "You picked the wrong war." She replayed the message again and again. By morning, Marcus Hale was already outside. "Bag packed?" he asked as she opened the door. "Yes." "Good, because we just lost our safe channel." Emily's stomach tightened. "Lost how?" Marcus stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "NCIS Agent Finch, she's gone, office cleared out overnight, badge turned in, no forwarding." Emily felt the room tilt. "You said she was solid." "I said she checked out," Marcus replied. "That's not the same thing." They drove south in silence, the highway blurring past. Marcus finally spoke again. "Chimera wasn't a company," he said. "It was a layer. Contractors, politicians, military brass. You cut one head off, another one keeps breathing." Emily clenched her fists. "Then why come after me now?" Marcus glanced at her. Because you're the one variable they can't control. They pulled into a small federal building outside Savannah, unmarked, forgettable. Frank Lewis waited inside. Found something, he said without preamble, and you're not gonna like it. He slid a folder across the table. Emily opened it. Her name stared back at her in bold letters. Subject: Carter Emily Rose. Status: material witness, conditional. What does that mean? She asked quietly. It means, Frank said, someone flagged you as expendable. Marcus's jaw hardened. Who signed off? Frank tapped the bottom of the page. A name Emily recognized instantly. Deputy Director Samuel R. Klein. Pentagon, Marcus said flatly, high enough to bury this forever. Emily's breath came shallow. So what now? Now, Marcus said, we prove he's dirty. The meet was set for midnight. A parking garage beneath a luxury hotel in Atlanta, concrete, echoing, perfect for things that weren't supposed to happen. Emily sat in the back seat, recorder hidden, heart pounding. Marcus stepped out first. Deputy Director Klein emerged from the shadows, flanked by two men who moved like professionals. You've caused a lot of damage, Lieutenant, Klein said calmly. You should have died on that table. Marcus smiled thinly. Doctors are annoying that way. Klein's eyes flicked to the car. The nurse, bring her. Emily stepped out. Klein studied her like a specimen. You think you're a hero, he said, but you're a liability. Emily met his gaze. You sold secrets. Klein chuckled. I managed assets, big difference. A car engine roared. Headlights flared. Gunfire exploded. The garage erupted into chaos. Frank's voice shouted from above, move. Marcus shoved Emily behind a pillar as bullets sparked off concrete. One of Klein's men went down. The other ran. Klein tried to flee. Emily moved without thinking, lunging, slamming into him. They hit the ground hard. Klein clawed at her throat. You should have stayed quiet, he snarled. A gunshot cracked. Klein went limp. Marcus stood over them, smoking gun lowered. Conversation's over, he said. Sirens wailed in the distance. Too many. Too fast. Frank swore, we are burned every channel. Emily looked at Marcus, then we go public. Marcus hesitated. That's not how this works. It is now, Emily said. They survive in the dark. By morning, the files were everywhere. Emails, transfers, video. Names. Too many to ignore. News vans flooded the streets. Hearings were announced before noon. Emily watched the coverage in a hotel room, arms wrapped around herself. Marcus stood by the window. They'll come for you again, he said. This never really ends. Emily nodded. I know. A knock sounded at the door. 3 sharp raps. Marcus reached for his gun. Frank's voice came through. It's me. He entered, face grim, but satisfied. Klein's dead, he said, but his network is. Still, you lit the fuse. Emily stared at the screen, politicians denying, generals resigning. Was it worth it? She asked. Marcus looked at her. You saved more lives than you'll ever know, he said. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. This isn't over. Emily turned the phone face down. No, she said quietly, but it's not just me anymore. In Part 7, the fallout turns deadly, old allies are tested, and Emily is forced to make the hardest choice of her life, protect herself or protect the truth. The city woke up angry. By sunrise, every major network was running the story, corruption at the highest levels, leaked files, classified contracts exposed. Names were blurred on some channels, spoken plainly on others. Lawmakers denied everything. Generals resigned for personal reasons. No one said the word chimera, but everyone felt its shadow. Emily sat on the edge of the hotel bed, watching her own face flash briefly on screen before being replaced by a generic headline, "Whistleblower Nurse at Center of Federal Scandal." Her phone buzzed non-stop. Unknown numbers, missed calls, threats disguised as concern. Marcus turned the TV off. "They're shaping the narrative." "They're blaming me," Emily said quietly. "That means it's working." A knock came at the door. Frank entered without waiting, rain on his jacket, eyes hard. "We've got a problem." Marcus didn't ask what kind. "Where?" "Everywhere," Frank replied. "Protective detail pulled, safe houses compromised. Someone high up just labeled Emily a flight risk." Emily's chest tightened. "So they arrest me." Frank shook his head. "Worse, they let someone else handle it." As if on cue, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Marcus was already moving. Phones, now. No signal. A low hum vibrated through the walls. "Jammer," Frank muttered, "close." The window shattered inward. Emily screamed as glass exploded across the room. Gunfire ripped through the darkness. Marcus tackled her to the floor as bullets chewed the mattress where she'd been sitting seconds earlier. "Back stairwell," Frank yelled, firing twice toward the window. They ran. Down concrete steps slick with rain, alarms blaring, smoke choking the air. In the parking garage, a black SUV roared to life. Marcus shoved Emily behind a car as rounds sparked off metal. "We can't keep running," Emily shouted over the chaos. Marcus looked at her, really looked. "You still have the backup?" he asked. She nodded. "Then this ends tonight." They regrouped at an abandoned ferry terminal by the river. Cold, dark, forgotten. Emily's hands shook as she pulled the drive from her bag. "If I release this," she said, "there's no going back." Marcus rested a hand on her shoulder. There never was. Frank's phone buzzed, one bar of signal flickering to life. "Live feeds up," he said. "You've got 5 minutes before they triangulate." Emily took a breath and stepped in front of the camera Frank had rigged. She'd never felt smaller or stronger. "My name is Emily Carter," she began. "I'm a nurse. I saved a man's life, and because of that, people tried to erase me." She spoke calmly, clearly. "About the hospital, the fake agents, the helicopter, the names." As she finished, headlights flared outside. "They're here," Frank warned. Marcus grabbed the drive. "Upload now." Emily hit send. The feed went dark. Gunfire erupted outside as men flooded the terminal. Marcus shoved Emily toward the river door. "Go." "What about you?" He smiled grimly. "I'll slow them down." Frank moved with him, disappearing into the shadows. Emily ran. She burst out onto the dock just as a bullet tore through the railing beside her. She jumped, cold water swallowing her whole. The current dragged her under. She kicked, fought, broke the surface, gasping. Sirens wailed overhead. By the time authorities arrived, the terminal was burning. 2 bodies were pulled from the wreckage. Marcus Hale, Frank Lewis, heroes buried quietly. Emily watched from the shadows as dawn broke over the river, tears mixing with rain. Her phone buzzed. One message. "The truth is out, run live." She turned and disappeared into the city. In Part 8, the final fallout unfolds. The world learns what really happened, and Emily makes a choice that changes her life forever. The world didn't end the night the truth came out. It just cracked. Emily Carter watched the fallout from a small coastal town that didn't ask questions. No cable news, no familiar faces, just salt air, gray skis, and a rented room above a bait shop where the floorboards creaked like they were alive. Every morning, the same ritual. Coffee. Local paper. Radio low. Congressional hearings began within days. Names Emily had only seen in redacted files were suddenly everywhere, on screens, in headlines, under oath. Defense contracts frozen, generals testifying, lobbyists vanishing. And buried beneath the noise, two small headlines that never made the front page. Former Navy SEAL, LT, Marcus Hale dies in fire. Civilian contractor, Frank Lewis killed in incident. No mention of heroism. No mention of sacrifice. Emily folded the paper and stared out at the water. "I'm still here," she whispered. "You're not." She worked under a different name now. Small clinic, no night shifts, no headlines, just patients who didn't care who she used to be, only that her hands were steady and her voice was calm. But even hiding had a cost. Every siren made her flinch. Every knock froze her breath. Every unfamiliar face carried a shadow of what if. One afternoon, a man in a grey jacket waited outside the clinic. Emily's heart pounded as she stepped past him. "Emily Carter," he said quietly. She stopped. "I don't go by that name," she replied. He held up empty hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." She turned slowly. "Then why are you here?" He handed her a sealed envelope. "Because some of us decided not to look away anymore." Inside was a single page. United States Congressional Record. Whistleblower protection granted. Her knees nearly buckled. "They tried to bury this," the man continued. "Didn't work, too many eyes now." Emily swallowed. "So I can stop running." He nodded. "If you want." That night, Emily stood at the shoreline, waves brushing her boots. She thought of Marcus, his calm voice, his steady presence even while bleeding out. She thought of Frank, quiet, overlooked, unbreakable. They hadn't died, so she could hide forever. She went back. The hearing room was packed. Cameras, senators, lawyers. Emily sat alone at the witness table. No uniform. No protection detail. Just truth. She spoke for hours. About the hospital. The cover-ups. The men who believed they were untouchable. When it was over, the room was silent. A senator leaned forward. "Ms. Carter, why didn't you disappear when you had the chance?" Emily looked straight into the camera. "Because if people like me keep running," she said, "people like them keep winning." The room erupted. Applause wasn't allowed, but it happened anyway. Months later, a memorial plaque was installed quietly near the harbor. No ceremony. Just names. LT Marcus Hale, United States Navy. Frank Lewis, who stood when it mattered. Emily stood before it alone. "I didn't save the world," she said softly, "but I didn't let it lie to itself either." The wind carried her words out to sea. She turned and walked away, not into hiding, not into fame, but forward. Still a nurse. Still standing. If this story moved you, if you believe ordinary people can stand up to powerful systems, if you think truth matters even when it costs everything, like this video to honor the ones who stood their ground. Subscribe for more real, powerful stories that expose injustice and courage. Comment below, would you have stayed or disappeared? Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to be erased.